The world of drug deals. It thrives in the shadows, hidden from the watchful eyes of the law. It's a world where trust is a currency, often counterfeit, and betrayal can be bought with the highest bid. We've all heard the stories, whispered in hushed tones, about deals gone wrong, about lives lost and ruined in the pursuit of quick money and illicit highs. Today, we're diving deep into that world, into the heart of darkness where danger lurks around every corner. We're going to explore 5 scary drug deal stories that spiraled into chaos and violence, leaving behind a trail of broken lives and unanswered questions. These are true stories, ripped from the headlines and whispered in hushed tones. So buckle up, because these stories will take you on a dark and twisted journey into the underbelly of the drug trade, where every deal could be your last. Our story takes us to a desolate city corner consumed by night. The streets are eerily quiet, shadows dancing along abandoned buildings, creating an atmosphere thick with tension. The air is thick with exhaust fumes and the promise of rain. A light drizzle begins to fall, adding a layer of mist that clings to the ground. A rundown parking lot, dimly lit by flickering streetlights, becomes the stage for a drug deal about to go very wrong. 2 cars, a rusty sedan and a black SUV, approach each other. The sound of their engines echoes, a prelude to the confrontation. The driver's eyes meet in the rearview mirror, a silent acknowledgement of the dangerous game they're about to play. One man steps out of the sedan, his hand near his jacket pocket, every step measured as he approaches the other vehicle. The other man emerges from the SUV, a swagger in his step, a glint of steel reflecting in the dim light. This was supposed to be a simple exchange, a routine deal, but tonight the air is charged with a different energy. The rules are about to change, and the price of betrayal is about to be paid in blood. A flash of movement, a glint of steel, and the sound of a gunshot pierce the night. Our story takes us from the gritty streets to a cheap motel room, where the flickering neon sign outside casts an eerie glow. The room holds its own kind of tension, a quiet, suffocating pressure that seeps from the walls. The dealer, his nerves frayed from the shootout, sits on the edge of the bed, his phone clutched in his hand. He scrolls through his messages, looking for any sign of the buyer. The events of the night before play on a loop in his mind. He's waiting for a buyer, hoping to unload the rest of his stash. The minutes tick by slowly. Every sound outside the door makes him jump, his heart racing. The room is small and dingy, the air thick with the smell of stale cigarettes and cleaning products. The wallpaper is peeling, revealing patches of mold. The carpet is stained and threadbare. The only sounds are the hum of the air conditioner and the distant rumble of traffic. The air conditioner rattles and groans, barely making a dent in the oppressive heat. He checks his phone again, his anxiety growing. Each time the screen lights up, his heart skips a beat, only to sink again when he sees no new messages. He types out a message, then deletes it, unsure of what to say. He's jumping, paranoid. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the curtains sets his nerves on edge. He paces the room, his mind racing with worst-case scenarios. He knows he's taking a risk, but desperation clouds his judgment. He thinks about the money, the debts, the people counting on him. He takes a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. He moves to the window, peering through the curtains at the parking lot below. The neon sign casts long shadows. He scans the lot for any sign of the buyer, any unfamiliar cars, any movement. He sits back down on the bed, his head in his hands. The weight of his situation presses down on him. He thinks about his family, the people he's let down, the promises he's broken. A knock on the door startles him. His heart leaps into his throat as he stands up, his hand reaching for the gun tucked into his waistband. He takes a deep breath and moves towards the door. He opens the door cautiously. The buyer stands there, a shadowy figure silhouetted against the flickering neon light. The dealer's hand tightens on the gun. He steps aside, letting the buyer into the room. The door closes behind them with a soft click. The tension in the room is palpable as they size each other up. They sit at the small table, the dealer laying out his stash, the buyer inspecting it. The dealer watches closely, looking for any sign of approval. The buyer nods, a small gesture, but enough to lift the dealer's heart. They shake hands, the deal made. The dealer feels a wave of relief, but he knows it's not over yet. He still has to get out of here, make it back to his car, and get away clean. The night is far from over. On the outskirts of town, swallowed by darkness and shadows, stood an abandoned warehouse. Its walls, once vibrant with the hum of industry, now stood silent and foreboding. The streetlight flickered intermittently, casting eerie shadows that danced across the crumbling facade. It had probably seen better days, back when it was actually used for something other than rats nesting, and teenagers daring each other to spend 5 minutes inside. The walls were now adorned with graffiti, a chaotic tapestry of colours and messages left by those who had ventured inside. For two dealers looking to avoid the watchful eyes of the law, it was the perfect meeting place. The isolation and desolation provided the cover they needed. They moved with purpose, their footsteps echoing in the vast emptiness. The deal had to go down without a hitch. Every detail had been meticulously planned. The package, small but valuable, was the key to their success. The exchange was quick, a practiced routine that left no room for error. Getting busted wasn't an option. The consequences were too severe. They had to be vigilant, always on the lookout for any sign of trouble. The sound of a distant siren sent a shiver down their spines. But as they pulled up to the rusted loading docks, a sense of unease settled over them. The place seemed different tonight, more sinister. The moon cast long shadows that seemed to move and shift, creating an atmosphere of dread. Maybe it was the way the wind howled through the broken windows, or the shadows that seemed to dance in the moonlight filtering through the holes in the roof. The building seemed to come alive, its decaying structure groaning and creaking. Whatever it was, these guys couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Their instincts screamed at them to leave, but the lure of the deal was too strong. They exchanged nervous glances, each man silently questioning the other's resolve. They told themselves it was just nerves, the paranoia that came with their line of work. They had been in similar situations before, and they had always come out unscathed. But this time felt different. The warehouse seemed to be watching them, but deep down a primal instinct whispered a warning. They should have listened. The feeling of being watched grew stronger, an almost physical presence that sent chills down their spines. Their instincts screamed at them to leave. They should have just turned around and walked away. The signs were all there, clear as day. The warehouse was a trap, a place where danger lurked in every shadow. But they ignored the warnings, driven by greed and desperation. But the money was too good, the pressure too high. The deal promised a payout that could change their lives, a chance to escape the cycle of crime and poverty. The cash was too enticing to pass up, and so, ignoring the gnawing fear in their guts, they stepped inside. The darkness swallowed them, the warehouse closing in around them like a predator. They moved forward, driven by a mix of fear and determination, unaware of the true danger that awaited them. This wasn't a dark alley or a seedy motel. This was suburbia. The kind of place with manicured lawns and those little statues of gnomes, you know? People whispering about whose kid got into which college, not where to score their next fix. But behind one of these doors, a darkness was brewing. Inside, two men huddled around a table. Cash, stacked high, was being counted and weighed. Bags of white powder, carefully packaged, awaited their buyers. These guys, they thought they were smart. They picked this place, this ordinary house, as their fortress. But they forgot one thing about fortresses. They're meant to be impenetrable from the outside. They don't account for the enemy already being inside the walls. And tonight the enemy wasn't some rival gang. It was the law, and they were coming in hot. Picture this, a clearing deep in the woods, the kind of place that's beautiful during the day, sunlight filtering through the trees, birds chirping. But at night, it's a different story. Every shadow seems to hold something sinister. Every rustle of leaves could be a predator stalking its prey. This was the setting for our next story, a drug deal gone terribly wrong. Four men, their faces hidden in the darkness, met beside those parked cars. The isolation was supposed to be their shield, their guarantee that no one would interfere. But isolation is a double-edged sword. It cuts both ways. Out here, miles from civilization, there were no witnesses. No one to hear you scream, no one to help. Five stories, 5 lives forever changed or extinguished because of the choices they made. The drug trade, it promises wealth, power, escape. But the reality, it's a dark and dangerous world where trust is a liability and betrayal is just a heartbeat away. These stories are a reminder that every deal, every exchange could be your last. The next time you think about chasing that high, remember these faces, these stories. Because in the end, the cost of darkness is far greater than you can imagine.